You're listening to FabulosiTEA, in which we discuss what you bring to the tea party, essentials for the modern heroine.
I'm Caroline from Sparkles and Crumbs.
And I'm Xandra from Fashionably Light.
Hello and welcome to this fortnight's episode of FabulosiTEA, episode 22, Chivalry for the Modern Mr. Knightley. So Xandra, why did we pick this topic?
Well, actually this week is a reader or listener requested episode from my friend Jack, who suggested an email. You could have a fun discussion on your podcast about romance and being a heroine. You could start with how you guys feel if a man you met kissed your hand or stood up when you entered a room. Is that too anachronistic now to the point that it's awkward? What can women do? Perhaps you could invent new customs for women and heroines. So I thought this was a really interesting topic.
Such a good idea.
So fabulous, T. So today we're going to talk about chivalry and what it means to the modern woman and to the modern man.
Woo!
Yeah. But first, what is your fabulosity?
Ooh, well mine was I had my first burlesque class.
Oh, cool.
It was amazing. It was a blogger event organised by the lovely Sarah at the ProseccoDiaries.com. And it was at the Café de Paris in Piccadilly with some loads of lovely blogger girls. And the cheek of it, which is a burlesque school run by Madame Cheeky, who was amazing, gave us kind of a free taster session of her burlesque class. And it was so much fun.
Wow.
It was like hearing my own thoughts spoken out loud. Like, oh, make your entrance. Oh, this is disastrous. You drop something and everyone's looking. Make it fabulous.
Oh my goodness.
It was so fun. So that was my fabulosity.
Wow. That sounds really... Burlesque is such a fun and empowering thing, I think.
Yes, and it was really interesting. Kind of Madame Cheeky went through kind of the history of it for a few minutes, and it's really fascinating, the kind of development of it and the sense of kind of fun and ridiculousness that's
Right.
often forgotten.
Yeah, exactly.
And
That's
how it
what's
is,
surprising.
it's so much about being silly, and I loved it anyway.
Yeah, well, I feel like we can do a whole episode on that as well.
Oh, can we?
Yeah. Okay. We'll do that later.
Is that going on the master plan?
Yeah. Just write it down.
And what was your fabulosity, Xandra?
My fabulosity was this weekend. My family went to Concord, Massachusetts, which is one of my favorite towns in the world. It is a little literary offshoot of Boston where in the 19th century a bunch of writers lived there. So the Alcotts and Emerson and Thoreau and Nathaniel Hawthorne, they all were sort of pals in that area. So I requested to have a little trip down to Concord. We went to Emerson's house and Thoreau's birthplace, and we walked around Walden Pond, which is where Thoreau did his minimalist experiment by living in a cabin in the woods for a couple years and writing about it. So it was really wonderful to connect to these people that have inspired me and to be in nature on a really lovely summer Boston-y day.
It's a pilgrimage.
Yeah, exactly. I used that word a few times. Yeah.
Oh, haven't we had nice weekends?
We have, yeah. So, shall we jump into our topic?
Yes. Well, I think possibly first it might be a good idea to define chivalry, I guess.
Yeah.
As you're a literature student.
Oh my gosh. So I saw the article that you linked to, which I would recommend to our listeners as well, on the Code of Chivalry for the 21st century. Actually, it's 21stcenturychivalry.com.
I know, I love
That's
it. We'll pop a link in the show notes.
fantastic. Okay.
And the nice thing about the code is I feel like it, if you read through it, it actually applies to everyone. It's not a kind of gendered thing at all.
Yes, exactly. And when I pulled that up, I was like, oh gosh, I should have looked up my notes on chivalry from doing Middle English.
Oh no, you have
King Arthur. But yeah, chivalry sort of started with knighthood and this idea of being a noble warrior. And today we're using it to apply to social situations more so. But should we give some examples?
Oh, yes.
So if you go to the site, it has the code and it breaks it into different topics like truth, honor, justice, valor. I think the one that most applies to our conversation today is courtesy, to be polite and mannerly in dress, speech, and carriage, to treat all people as equals, to be kind to animals, and in war or competition to follow the rules, lose with grace, and win with humbleness.
See, we can all do that.
Yeah,
It's very fabulosity.
it is. Yeah. And as for examples of models of chivalry, who would be yours?
No, obviously Mr. Knightley.
Yeah, the namesake of this
Jane
episode.
Austen's Mr. Knightley, even his name is chivalrous.
Yeah.
And he's very much someone who's a charming gentleman, witty, good at conversation with ladies, but extends it to everyone. He's very kind to Emma's father. He's very kind to Miss Bates, who's kind of, sometimes overlooked or treated a bit badly by other people. He's not afraid to speak up when he feels Emma's been behaving badly or treating people badly. He's just wonderful.
Yeah. And my favorite Austen hero is Colonel Brandon from Sense and Sensibility.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that was before I saw the Alan Rickman movie as well, just to get that out there. But what I like about Colonel Brandon is how he truly respects Marianne for who she is. And there's this scene where she's playing the piano and everyone's like, oh, good job, you're so good, this is really great. But he's actually listening to her and can have a conversation with her afterwards and is not just saying good job and not just doing the actions that you're expected to do, but really taking a vested interest and caring about her as a person.
Oh, Austen did write good chivalrous heroes.
She did.
Another one of my absolute favourite, slightly less conventional examples of chivalry is Gilbert in The Lady Vanishes, the old Hitchcock movie, which is one of my all-time favourites. Everyone should see it. It's hilarious. It's very tense. It's wonderful. But he's quite an unconventional hero. He's kind of proof that you can be bitingly sarcastic and very kind of bantery and witty and always quite a sharp way, but while still being very chivalrous.
Yeah.
And there's his wonderful, like the heroine's in distress, and he's very good naturedly helping her out. She's like, "Oh, why won't you just go away and leave me alone?" He's like, "No, no, no. My father always taught me never to leave a lady in distress. He took it as far as marrying my mother."
Yeah.
And also, oh, sorry, Carrie.
Go ahead.
And another of my favourites is in the TV show A Heart of Dixie, which is one of my guilty pleasures I absolutely love, and the very lovely George Tucker in that. It was so funny. I watched this actually with one of my callers on the telephone campaign when we were stuffing envelopes. We had Heart of Dixie on the TV, on the computer, and she's, I think she's from Texas. She was from the south of the USA. She's like, oh my gosh, it's so familiar. Why aren't Southern gentlemen actually like that in real life?
Yeah,
so I think chivalry is quite big in this idea of the Southern gentleman, isn't it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's definitely regional, and here in New England and in Old England, I guess, people can be more sarcastic or blunt, which can be appreciated in that, like, you're getting someone at face value, but
Yeah.
you want a combination of politeness on top of that.
Oh yes, I think it's not about being false and smarmy chivalry, I'd say.
Right.
It's about being sincere and genuinely pointing out if you think someone's mistaken, but again, doing it in a way that isn't rude or kind of bullshit.
So I think what we're agreeing on here is that chivalry is a sort of sincerity.
Yes.
It's like sincerity and caring.
Sincerely doing something nice for...
Right.
Which kind of leads into this whole debate about, the rights and wrongs of chivalry. Whether it is something good to aspire to today or if it's kind of way too coloured by sexist kind of ideas and attitudes.
Right. So you had linked to another article on Nerdy Feminist it's called
No Chivalry, Thanks.
No Chivalry, Thanks. And I really like how she breaks down what could be considered chivalrous and what could be considered awkward and what could be considered sexist even, with the door scenario. Mm-hmm. So on a basic level, it's nice if someone opens a door for you. And actually, I can't remember what setting this was in, I think it was in high school or something, when we're doing one of those personal development lessons. They say, like, what's an example of a random act of kindness for someone? And everyone said, like, oh, holding the door open is a nice thing to do. That's like the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
But it's more complex than that.
Mm-hmm.
So she has 3 different scenarios. One where a man and a woman are entering, and the woman is closer to the door, and so she holds the door open for the man. And then if you have the man closer to the door and he holds open the door for the woman, then that's fine. But what's really awkward is if the woman is closer to the door and the man, and she tries to open the door for the man, but he's like, oh no, let me get it because I'm a man.
Yeah.
And you have this extra fumble of, oh, well, I am already holding it, so clearly I'm capable of holding the door open. So in that situation, it's awkward.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just go with the general rule of whoever is closer to the door holds it open and is chivalrous to the other person regardless of gender, then that's just a nice thing to do.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. So I think the issue here is connotating, I guess, chivalry with masculinity.
Yes. I can't remember where I read it, but it was I should have copied it down, the article, but someone made the point that, guys wouldn't pull out a chair for another guy.
Oh,
as
yeah.
a general rule. Or there's, the kind of the thing of the gentleman's supposed to walk on the outside of the pavement when walking a lady down the street in case a car splashes.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And I have to admit, I kind of love all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
I don't think too much into the probably very offensive feminist connotations of it, but I do kind of love people who kiss your hand when you meet them. Because that's because I think I'm in an old Hollywood musical most of the time. But yeah, I think there is kind of this conception that a lot of the things that are seen as old-fashioned, these chivalrous, are a little bit sexist and gendered.
This is a slight tangent, but have you been keeping up with Emma Approved?
Yes. Oh,
and Frank Churchill kisses her on the hand.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, and she's like, he is totally in love with me, and this is awkward, but little does she know she's in a Jane Austen novel. Yeah, and that's different too. That was sort of, huh?
I've just been loving Emma Approved. I'm so glad it's back on.
Yes, me too. Yeah, well, in that situation, that wasn't like a, oh, charmed to meet you kind of thing, like a first impression kissing her on the hand, but it was sort of after they'd developed this flirtatious banter, so it was more of a...
He's such a flirt in it.
He's such a flirt.
Bad Frank Churchill. It's bad because we know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry to people who haven't read.
I love Alex Knightley, and I also love the fact, have we mentioned this on the podcast before, that the main character, the main actor and actress playing Emma and Mr. Knightley are dating in real life?
That might have been my FabulosiTEA at some point.
I think it was, sorry. So
yeah. Oh, that's adorable. Yes, but going back to what we were talking about. So what are the examples? So kissing on the hand. I mean, all of these things really depend on the context as well.
Yeah.
Oh, and pulling out chairs.
Yeah.
That is different from holding a door open because you don't physically need somebody to
no.
hold your chair for you.
You're incredibly spoiled.
No. I mean, I think all of this dates back to, like, the functionality of women wearing big dresses.
Oh, yeah, you're probably right.
Where now, I mean, I guess women wear more constricting apparel anyway, but it's less to do with that.
Maybe a good measure of whether something chivalrous is appropriate for the occasion is whether you would also do it for a guy. So as a guy, if you hold a door open for a guy, fine, do it for the lady. If you wouldn't pull a chair out for a guy, don't for a lady. That kind of thing.
Right. And I think also you don't want to make a rule of it. So if you're a guy dating a girl, you don't want to pull out a chair for her every time you go to get coffee. But if you are going out to a really fancy restaurant, like a once a year kind of thing, then you can pull out the chair and it's an unexpected gesture and it could be seen as thoughtful.
Yeah.
Would we say that's okay, or is that still...
Oh, I'd love it.
Yeah. And also know your audience.
Know your audience, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Can't get enough of the chivalry.
Yeah. So, for the record,
But yeah,
Caroline is okay with this.
I'm fine with chivalry, guys. All handsome gentlemen, I'm fine with chivalry. But I think it does depend on your audience. I think, you know, I've definitely been out with friends and spoken to a guy and been like, "Oh, he's so charming and chivalrous," and my friend would be like, "Oh no, I thought that was really sleazy."
Mm.
Like sometimes it is just someone's impression, so I can see how it's quite hard for poor modern day gentlemen, modern day heroes to walk the line between being a little bit charming and old fashioned chivalry and coming off wrong, I think.
And it isn't just modern heroes as well. Going back to Jane Austen and Pride and Prejudice,
Yes.
Darcy is totally unchivalrous
Mm.
when he first meets Elizabeth, and that is
Whereas what's his name? Willoughby? No, I
Willoughby.
think he said sensibility. Oh, he's also good. I'm thinking, oh
Oh,
gosh, what's his
Wickham.
name? Wickham, the other
Yeah,
W, the other evil W. Um, who's initially comes across as very chivalrous and charming, but isn't.
no, totally isn't. So chivalry isn't everything, gentlemen.
Well, if you look at the 21st century code of chivalry, it's a holistic approach to being a genuine person, but we're
Right.
tending to slightly focus more on kind of social codes and outward behavior,
Right. And
little
I mean,
justice for other
it's
people.
right. And it's cliched advice for a reason to be yourself. And if you're not a naturally over the top chivalry kind of person, then trying to put on that act will just make you seem insincere. Like, imagine if Darcy had pretended to be chivalrous.
Ew, it wouldn't suit him.
It wouldn't suit him. He's known for being sulky and grumbly. We make him sound so attractive.
But he's definitely not my favorite Austen heroine. Heroine? Heroine.
Yeah, me neither.
He's definitely not my favorite Austen heroine.
No.
Knightley's my favorite.
Yeah.
I think Darcy would be difficult to live with. He'd be too moody. He'd sell clothes. You have to try and guess what he was thinking. It would be awful.
But yeah. Oh, have you seen 500 Days of Summer?
Yes.
There's that scene where the guy is hitting on her and Tom punches him out.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, "Why are you being a jerk?" And Tom says, "No, like, I did that for you."
Yeah.
And she's saying that's really uncalled for because she didn't ask him to do that. She can fight her own battles, not physically with punching people, and he feels really proud of himself for like getting in a fight for the girl. That scene always really bothered me because I agreed with Summer in that respect.
Yeah, I normally didn't like her for most of the movie, but she was right
Yeah.
punching someone when there are so many other options of how to deal with that situation isn't particularly
Yeah.
chivalrous.
And I think the root of that issue came down to him feeling like the threat was directed at him being because
Yeah, because the guy has been rude to him and been like, "You're with this guy."
right, yeah. So he was justifying it by using the woman as an excuse when really he was dealing with his own inner conflict. And chivalry and sort of putting it off on the girl and saying, "I'm doing this for you because I'm a man," can sort of be seen that way.
Yeah, I know. My thought kind of is, if you go to Weatherspoons on a Saturday night, for example, there is not enough chivalry in the world at the moment, and I think complimenting people in a charming, nice way, not elbowing people out of the way to get to the bar.
Right.
But yeah, that does apply to women and men.
Yeah, it's just politeness.
Just common decency.
Yeah.
You were talking to me earlier about The Hills.
Oh my gosh.
Speaking of the horrors of modernity.
Yeah, so I've been watching The Hills in my constant quest to find shows to watch that remind me of Gossip Girl, and I've been enjoying it because it's about Lauren Conrad and her time out in LA interning at Teen Vogue and trying to make her way through the world. And it's, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's like a reality show where they sort of follow around these real people with cameras and sort of manipulate situations. But
They're awful people.
yeah, okay, so this show made me realize what jerks guys can be.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
And then, so they sort of control the women that they're with. They say, like, oh, I need you to do this. And why can't you do this for me? And they're really controlling. And then they, like, turn around and buy them expensive presents and send them expensive flowers and expect everything to be okay. And that's the part that I wanted to bring up, because while those gestures of giving people thoughtful presents, expensive gifts, can be a chivalrous thing in the right context, I think in the context of like, oh, this will make up for everything I've done, is really icky.
It's very, again, insincere.
Yeah.
It's insincere, and it's about surface appearance and cheap gestures rather than, going back to this code of chivalry about trying to live your life in a chivalrous way as a whole and behaving consistently. Do you know what's springing to my mind?
What?
Have you heard the Saturday song Gentleman?
No.
It's sorry. The Saturdays, I don't know if you know them, they're a brilliantly tacky pop band.
Okay.
A girl group from the UK, and I think they've had some hits in America. But it's a song, Gentleman. It's a terrible song. We'll put a link in the show notes, but the lyrics are brilliant. Like, a gentleman is so 1995, so hard for a girl to find. But one of the lines is like, he overcompensates by buying you fancy cars just to cover up the fact that he stays out all night in bars.
Yeah, that is the Hills in a nutshell. Love it.
And they go through, they name check loads of like modern, like gentlemen.
Like, what's one example?
Where is it? I need a Ryan Gosling. I need a Robert Pattinson. Somebody I can take to Mama. I need to find my Obama.
Okay,
It's a ridiculous song.
I definitely need to hear this song now.
Yeah.
So, how do you bring this to the tea party? Listen to Gentleman.
Heed the wise words of the Saturdays.
Yeah, but
Think
seriously,
what would Mr. Knightley do?
yeah, and read the Code of Chivalry,
This
and
could be your homework.
yeah, ooh,
Assignment.
reading. Yeah, and I think about chivalry versus politeness and how women can be chivalrous as well, because I think that solves the issue really, is applying it to both men and
It's all
women.
just be chivalrous.
Yeah. Any other business?
Well, we had some nice correspondence from Mo
Mm-hmm.
of Ollivander Mo, on our last issue on Grace Kelly-esque posture. Last episode.
Yeah, she said, posture says a lot about a person, good or bad. I also love the meanings behind different types of body language.
That's an interesting episode idea.
Yeah. And she's a dancer as well. So
So she knows.
she knows her stuff.
Awesome. Well, as always, do get in touch and let us know what you think about this week's episode. Do you agree, is chivalry inherently sexist, or do you like what we've come up with in terms of a code for modern day heroes and heroines? You can find the show notes on FabulosiTEA, that's TEA on the end.com, and get in touch in the comments section or on Twitter at FabulosiTEA.
And we'll be back on July 18th with episode 23, Selecting Signature Jewelry.
Woo! See you there.
Bye.
Ciao.